Good evening. Today is day 7 of continuous shelling across the line of control. Welcome. This is News Tonight on Rajya Sabha TV. My name is Zaka Jacob. First up, the top stories that we're tracking tonight. Heavy shelling along the line of control for the 7th day running. DGMO's meet between India and Pakistan ends with both sides blaming each other. The Karnataka High Court refuses bail to former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha. Rules that corruption charges against her are a violation of human rights. In a direct attack on both the Thackeray cousins, Prime Minister Narendra Modi refutes allegations that his government plans to divide Maharashtra. It says Mumbai will never be separated. And a Spanish nurse infected with Ebola becomes the first person outside of West Africa to fall prey to the deadly virus. And our top story tonight, Indian and Pakistani forces kept up heavy firing across the line of control Tuesday. Today is the 7th straight day of shelling. 4 people were injured, even as the Directors General of Military Operations of both sides held a meeting. That meeting, though, ended up as nothing more than a blame game. Observers say the escalation of hostilities seems to indicate a hardening of resolve, particularly by the Indian establishment, to try and show that this time is different, to try and aggressively respond to Pakistan.
Indian and Pakistani forces exchanged heavy fire on Tuesday, a day after people were killed on both sides. Pakistani forces reportedly fired at 40 Indian Army posts.
तकरीबन 40 पोस्टों के ऊपर हमारे फायर हुआ है और हमारे सारे पोस्टों से उस पर जवाबी कार्रवाई हुई है.
Monday's casualties were the highest death toll among non-military personnel in a single day since 2003. People living along the line of control said that they were living in fear due to the continuous firing. Over the last 7 days, hundreds of villagers have fled their homes in the remote Kashmir region.
9:30 बजे रात फायर शुरू हुयो और सवेरे 4:30 बजे तक गम रहो. कोई नहीं सुतो, ना किसी का बच्चा सुता, ना किसी के बाल बच्चों सुतो. रात बैस के कटी छप के वहां दरो अखबार में के है छत पर गिरा को तो छत भी फाड़ दिया उनको गोड़ो तो अंदर भी नहीं सुता.
एक बकरी ऑन स्पॉट मर गई और एक गाय 2 घंटे के बाद में एक गाय भी मर गया. इनका एक छोटा बच्चा है हमारा अंशु, इसके बाजू में एक फिंगर लगी है.
पाकिस्तान तो हर रोज फायरिंग कर रहा है. लोग बहुत तंग है, पूरी रात लोग सोए नहीं हैं. कई लोग रात को जो है बच्चों सहित जो है पीछे चले जाते हैं, सुबह आते हैं. यहाँ किसान लोग हैं, सब किसानी पर खेती पर ही डिपेंड करते हैं सब लोग.
On the Indian side, the firing from across the border killed 5 villagers and left 30 injured. A Pakistani military statement said 4 civilians, including 2 children, were killed on its side. Strategic experts said that the hostilities being answered bullet for bullet from the Indian side indicated a certain determination on the part of the political establishment.
The Pakistani Foreign Office has also sought to draw international attention to this, as they have done in the past. On the Indian side, we are now seeing a certain determination, a political determination, that whenever Pakistan behaves in this manner, the local response on the ground will be swift and it will be very, very effective.
Home Minister Rajnath Singh said Pakistan needed to learn that the newly elected Indian government will take a more aggressive approach if it comes under attack on the border. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
From continuing hostilities along the line of control, it was a day of high drama, first in Bangalore and then in Chennai. First came the news that AIADMK General Secretary Jayalalitha was granted conditional bail by the Karnataka High Court, and then within half an hour, there was a retraction saying that the court had not granted her any kind of interim relief and that the AIADMK leader will have to continue staying in jail. In Chennai, first in response, there were wild celebrations among the AIADMK cadre, which soon gave way to collective depression.
Firecrackers go off at Poise Garden, Chennai. For a while, it seemed like this was Diwali come early for these AIADMK supporters. These celebrations were in response to some news reports out of Bangalore, which said their leader Jayalalitha was given conditional bail by the Karnataka High Court. But soon the celebrations turned sour. The firecrackers were replaced by slogan shouting cadres. Collective depression was back on the streets of Chennai. The police were back to fortifying their positions and trying to keep the crowds away from Jaya's residence. The AIADMK General Secretary and former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has been in jail since September 27th. She was convicted in a disproportionate assets case after a trial that lasted 18 years. The court sentenced her to 4 years in prison and imposed a fine of 100 crore rupees. But today there was a twist in the bail hearing. Interestingly, the special public prosecutor in this case, Bhavani Singh, after opposing the bail in the morning session, did a U-turn by dropping all objections when the court reconvened in the afternoon.
This Honorable Court of our High Court of Karnataka has dismissed both the applications. That is, one is suspension of sentence, then the granting of the bail. Now no other way, sir. After obtaining a copy of the Honorable High Court order, our senior counsel Judge Malani, after going through the judgments, will go and make an appeal before the apex court of the country, the Supreme Court.
This led to some enthusiastic AIADMK supporters as well as eager news channels to believe that Jayalalitha had actually been given relief by the court. In the end, it proved to be a false start. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister will now have to approach the Supreme Court for interim relief. Now, this story has spawned a series of political reactions cutting across the spectrum from the DMK to the BJP to even the Congress. Let's listen in.
कानून की निगाह में प्रोटेस्ट की कोई हैसियत नहीं होती है। कानून अपना काम हमेशा करता है और प्रोटेस्ट जज्बात इनके मुताबिक कानून के फैसले नहीं होते हैं।
It was the only surprise in this whole thing was the public prosecutor's watering down his thing. He should have pressed for continuation of her sentence, being in jail, but he agreed to conditional bail. I'm a bit surprised at that. And but since then the judges have taken a correct stand, and I think the Karnataka High Court has done the right thing.
All right, so a day of high legal as well as political drama in Bangalore and Chennai, to all the action now hotting up on the campaign trail in the run-up to the elections in Maharashtra and Haryana. Just about a little over a week to go before the polls in Haryana and Maharashtra, and the who's who of the Union Cabinet, from the Prime Minister to the Home Minister to the External Affairs Minister, were out campaigning today for the upcoming polls. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, of course, was once again the star for his party, the BJP, and for the first time, he directly attacked both the Thackeray cousins, Uddhav and Raj, saying that no one can separate Mumbai from Maharashtra.
With about a week to go for the assembly polls in Maharashtra and Haryana, BJP has stepped up campaigning in these two states. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed as many as 3 rallies in Maharashtra on Tuesday. Dismissing opposition charges, Modi ruled out splitting of Maharashtra and separating Mumbai from the state.
महाराष्ट्र के टुकड़े होने वाले हैं। इस देश में कोई ऐसा पैदा हुआ है जो छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज की इस भूमि के टुकड़े कर पाए? भाइयों बहनों, जब तक मैं दिल्ली में बैठा हूं, मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं, दुनिया की कोई ताकत महाराष्ट्र की एकता को तोड़ नहीं पाएगी।
PM's remarks come against the backdrop of MNS chief Raj Thackeray reportedly accusing Modi of having a hidden agenda to split Mumbai from Maharashtra. Modi also criticized the Congress NCP government for being corrupt.
ये भ्रष्टाचारियों को साफ करोगे कि नहीं करोगे?
Modi called for a change of guard in Maharashtra to end corruption.
15 तारीख 15 सालों के पापों का वध करने का उत्सव है। 15 सालों को ये 15 तारीख 15 साल की बुराइयों को खत्म करने का उत्सव है भाइयों बहनों।
While Home Minister Rajnath Singh campaigned in Maharashtra's Latur, BJP chief Amit Shah continued his campaign trail in Haryana. Seeking mandate without an ally this time, the party chief chose to target the Hooda and Chautala government in his speech at Sirsa.
आप मुझे बताइए, हरियाणा के गांव में 24 घंटा बिजली आती है क्या? आती है? नहीं आती है तो कौन जिम्मेदार है? हुड्डा जी की सरकार यहाँ 10 साल रही है, कौन जिम्मेदार है? हुड्डा जी की सरकार।
He also raised the issue of ceasefire violation by Pakistan in his campaign speech. He claimed the NDA government has been able to give a fitting reply to the violations. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
But make no mistake, as the elections approach closer, the gloves are now well and truly off between Prime Minister Modi and the Shiv Sena. In an editorial in its mouthpiece Samna today, the Shiv Sena questioned why the Prime Minister chose to hold rallies in Maharashtra instead of being in Delhi to do his job, which is to run the country. Now, this latest attack coming just a day after the Sena accused Prime Minister Modi of backstabbing by ending the 25-year-old Saffron alliance.
Shiv Sena has pointed a fresh set of barbs at former ally BJP, questioning why its star Prime Minister Narendra Modi has to miss his work in Delhi and address rallies in Maharashtra. In an editorial in its mouthpiece Samna, the party said, and I quote, "If Modi had mass appeal as projected by the BJP, instead of 25 to 30 campaigns in Maharashtra, he would have sat in Delhi and appealed for votes, and people would have definitely listened to him." Unquote. Sena's taunts about Prime Minister Modi's multiple rallies in Maharashtra appeared in tandem with similar comments by Raj Thackeray. Raising questions over Modi's whirlwind Maharashtra campaign schedule, he alleged that there is a larger design in it. The views found support in other parties too, but BJP and its allies dismissed the questions, saying they do not merit a serious thought.
I think what Raj has said is substantially true. The Prime Minister has great responsibility of saving the nation, and more particularly when there is a constant violation of ceasefire at the border. What is he doing here by hopping from one place to another in Maharashtra for trying to catch votes? You see, this is not, he must have his own priority.
राज ठाकरे जी की इसी प्रकार के वक्तव्य उन्होंने लोकसभा के समय भी दिए थे और जनता ने उनकी क्या हालत की ये उन्होंने देखा है। अगर वो भूल गए होंगे तो जनता वापस उनकी वही हालत करेगी।
मुझे लगता है कि भाई राज ठाकरे के स्टेटमेंट को बहुत ज्यादा सीरियस लेना मुझे ठीक नहीं लगता है, क्योंकि राज ठाकरे जी हर नेता की टिंगल करते, हर नेता की नकल करते हैं। ऐसे नकल करने वाले नेता ने नाटक में काम करना चाहिए।
Last week, during a campaign rally in Maharashtra, Modi vowed that BJP will not speak against its former ally Shiv Sena in the poll campaigns out of respect to its founder Bal Thackeray. The stand reportedly sparked Shiv Sena's angry reactions. Both parties decided to part ways last month after failed talks on seat sharing for the assembly polls. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's not just Maharashtra. The campaign scene is hotting up in Haryana as well. There were a series of high-profile rallies today led by Chief Minister Bhupinder Singh Hooda, his son and Congress MP Dipinder Singh Hooda, and after a very long time, INLD Chief Om Prakash Chautala was out in campaign mode today. Let's take a look at what is happening to be a very multi-pronged fight that's developing in Haryana.
Seeking a third term for his father, Chief Minister Bhupendra Singh Hooda, Congress leader Dipender Singh Hooda held a roadshow in Haryana on Tuesday. Addressing the gathering, he urged the people to support his party to form the next government.
अगर आपको ये लगता है कि चौधरी भूपेंद्र सिंह हुड्डा जी ने पिछले 10 साल से एक अच्छाई की, भलाई की और ठीक नीयत से काम किया है, तो आप हमारा साथ दो। अगर आपको लगता है कि भाई उन्होंने बुरा करने की नीयत से काम किया है, तो आप बेशक से जिसका जिक्र है उसका साथ दो।
The senior Hooda was also on the campaign trail, addressing a rally in Hodal.
चीनी का करने का भाव तो हम देते हैं सबसे ज्यादा पूरे देश में, 310 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल सारे देश में सबसे ज्यादा हरियाणा सरकार देती है। गुजरात में क्या भाव मिलता है पता करो, 220 रुपए क्विंटल। एक क्विंटल में 90 रुपए ज्यादा हरियाणा में देते हैं। तो ये आपके सामने है, प्रत्यक्ष को प्रमाण की जरूरत नहीं भाई।
INLD Chief Om Prakash Chautala addressed the electorate in Panchkula. He sounded confident that his party would win a majority this time.
हरियाणा प्रदेश के लगभग सारे इलाके में घूमा। प्रेस के भाई नोट कर लें, हरियाणा के 21 जिले, 21 में से 14 जिले में आपको वो बना रहा हूं जो 100% इंडियन नेशनल लोकदल पार्टी।
With all parties out promising varied sops and schemes, an interesting contest is on the cards. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
It sure is building up to be a multi-cornered fight there in Haryana. Now, for all the other election-related news and updates, a quick wrap. Polpuri. 5 candidates from the Panchkula Assembly seat in Haryana were issued notices for discrepancies in their campaign expenditure submissions. Now, these candidates include those from the INLD, the Congress, the Haryana Janhit Congress, the BJP, as well as the BSP. It's the season of allies gone sour. Shiromani Akali Dal President Sukhbir Singh Badal now saying his party's alliance with the INLD in Haryana will not affect its ties with the BJP. The SAD is heading the coalition government in Punjab with the support of the BJP. Some Haryana BJP leaders had expressed reservations over senior Akali leaders canvassing for INLD candidates. The Election Commission has sought a report on the Haryana government's decision to clear a land deal involving real estate firm DLF and Sonia Gandhi's son-in-law Robert Vadra. The EC has asked if the deal constituted a violation of the Model Code of Conduct, but the Commission may not be able to intervene if that decision were taken before the 12th of September when the Model Code came into effect. And if you want more of all the election-related buzz and stories from the campaign trail, you can watch our special election bulletin. It's Verdict 2014 every day at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor can't seem to stay away from trouble for too long. A day after the Kerala Congress warned him to stop praising Prime Minister Narendra Modi, today a party-run newspaper attacked the MP. An editorial in the Congress daily Veekshanam raised questions about Tharoor's loyalty to the party. Mr. Tharoor, though, has dismissed these allegations as ridiculous, saying that his praise for the Prime Minister was not an endorsement of the BJP's Hindutva ideology.
An editorial in Congress daily Veekshanam carries a hidden warning for party MP Shashi Tharoor. Without naming him, the editorial says loyalty of those who praise Prime Minister Narendra Modi through social media and write adulatory articles will be suspected. The latest provocation for this seems to be Tharoor's positive response to Modi's Swachh Bharat campaign.
കഴിഞ്ഞ 100 ദിവസം കൊണ്ട് പ്രശംസ അറിയിക്കുന്ന രൂപത്തിൽ ഒരു പ്രവർത്തനവും കാഴ്ചവെക്കാൻ കഴിയാത്ത ഒരു പ്രധാനമന്ത്രി, അതും മതേതര ജനാധിപത്യ മൂല്യങ്ങളെ പ്രത്യക്ഷമായും പരോക്ഷമായും തകർത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു പ്രധാനമന്ത്രിയെ കോൺഗ്രസിന്റെ എംപിയായ ശശി തരൂർ തുടർച്ചയായി പ്രശംസിക്കുന്നത് അവസാനിപ്പിക്കണം എന്ന് ഞാൻ ആവശ്യപ്പെടുകയാണ്.
Not one to back down, though, Tharoor reaffirmed his participation in the Swachh Bharat campaign, but with a difference. He urged countrymen to do away with bigotry, hatred, intolerance and divisiveness, besides physical cleanliness. He also sought to set the record straight, saying he was a proud congressman and did not even remotely endorse the BJP's Hindutva agenda.
I was a bit surprised by this criticism that some of my fellow Congress workers have expressed, because when the Prime Minister invited me to join his campaign for the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, he did so explicitly to me as a Congress leader. In fact, he said, I think, Congress Neta or Sansad Shashi Tharoor. I'm concerned that there has been so much misunderstanding on the part of some colleagues. Let us all put India first. And as a congressman, I believe that the best vehicle for the progress of India is indeed the Congress party, its values, its convictions. And I'm proud to be part of this effort, proud to be in the Congress and proud to be an Indian.
Tharoor also dismissed as speculation suggestions that he was trying to get close to the BJP. The Congress party's Kerala unit has hinted that disciplinary action could be initiated against Tharoor after consulting other leaders.
अभी तक केरल से कुछ रिपोर्ट नहीं आया, कुछ सजेशन या डिसीजन AICC तक नहीं पहुंचा है. So whenever the decision of the KPCC is conveyed to AICC, then only we will take a decision.
Tharoor had responded positively to Modi's invitation to join the Clean India campaign, but wanted it to be a sustained program instead of being just tokenism. Tharoor is just one of 9 people who Modi invited to join the campaign. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So again, political rivals never be friends. We're going to take a break here on the news tonight. When we come back, we'll shift focus to all the international stories, including in Hong Kong, where the crowd of protesters, it started off as a sea of protesters, now it's thinning down even as they begin a dialogue with the government. We're back in 2 minutes. back to the news tonight here on Rajya Sabha television. International news now. In a case underscoring the risks of caring for Ebola patients, a nurse in Spain has contracted the deadly virus. Now, this is the first time that the virus has spread outside of West Africa during the current epidemic. Now, here's why that adds a whole new dimension to this disease, which has already claimed more than 3,000 lives.
A Spanish nurse became the first person to contract Ebola outside Africa, casting doubts over the measures taken by Spain to control the deadly disease. The nurse had tended two priests who contracted Ebola in Africa. Spanish officials say they still had to find out how the unnamed nurse contracted the infection.
Sí, un poco. Porque tampoco sabemos cómo es el contagio. No sabemos si va por el aire o directamente por saliva o cómo. No sabemos. Es lo que nos dicen. Y yo ahora que estoy acatarrada pues estoy un poco preocupada, sí.
Bueno, la verdad es que ha sido sorprendente que haya ocurrido aquí con todas las medidas de seguridad, pero nada más no puedo decir otra cosa.
Meanwhile, President Barack Obama said his administration was working on additional protocols for screening airplane passengers to identify people who might have Ebola.
The ability of people who are infected to carry that across borders is something that we have to take extremely seriously. At the same time, it is important for Americans to know the facts, and that is that because of the measures that we've put in place, as well as our world-class health system, and the nature of the Ebola virus itself, which is difficult to transmit, the chances of an Ebola outbreak in the United States is extremely low.
Apart from Liberia, Ebola has wreaked havoc in Sierra Leone and Guinea. It has also spread to Nigeria and Senegal, but is considered contained in those countries. The latest case in Spain has, however, raised several questions. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, in the global fight against the Islamic State, militants are on the verge of capturing the Syrian border town of Kobani. Now, the fall of this town will mark a major victory for the IS militants who are fighting for a long stretch of the border with Turkey. In response, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said that joint airstrikes will not stop these militants. He's now urging a ground operation instead. More than 400 people, half of them suspected to be jihadists, have been killed in and around Kobani since the middle of September. In Hong Kong, the crowds of protesters who filled up the streets of the city dramatically thinned down Tuesday. Now, this happened even as students and the local government there agreed to hold talks over the next few days to try and discuss the demands of the protesters regarding electoral reforms. Now, even though pro-democracy protesters allowed some civil servants to go through to their offices, some were still seen blocking key roads near key government offices. Some students also returned to their university after a 2-week absence from classes. Now, here's all the other international news and updates in our special segment, Global Buzz. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto has assured his nation that the perpetrators of the mass killing of students will soon be brought to justice. The discovery of mass graves on Monday raised fears that they may be that of the 43 missing students. Nieto also said that he demanded answers from law enforcement authorities about the disappearance of these students. 30 suspects have been arrested so far. The 2014 Nobel Prize for Physics was announced today. It was awarded to 3 scientists from Japan and the United States. Japanese professors Isamu Akasaki, Hiroshi Amano, and Japanese-American Shuji Nakamura won the prize for the invention of blue light-emitting diodes, or LEDs, the jury emphasizing the usefulness of this new energy-efficient and environmentally friendly light sources. China is reporting the worst outbreak of dengue fever in over 20 years in the southern province of Guangdong. 6 people have died so far and more than 20,000 have been infected. Authorities attribute the outbreak to high temperatures and wet weather this season. A US drone struck Pakistan's tribal region of North Waziristan late Monday, killing at least 8 people. 2 missiles hit a house and a car in the Shawal region. Now, this is the 4th strike in just the last 2 weeks alone. The captain of the South Korean ferry, which sank in April, killing 300 people on board, told a local court in Seoul today that he was in a very confused state at the time of the accident. Lee Jun-suk is charged with negligent homicide, a crime which in South Korea is punishable by death. Most of the victims were school children. Shifting focus from international stories to all the sports news and updates coming up in Sports Beat. The most decorated Olympian of all time, Michael Phelps, has been banned from swimming for at least 6 months. He's also been dropped from the 2015 World Championship, this after he was arrested last week for drunken driving. Phelps has won a staggering 18 Olympic gold medals, a record which seems like it'll stand for the foreseeable future. Formula One driver Jules Bianchi's condition is said to be critical but stable. The 25-year-old driver with the team Marussia was taken unconscious to a hospital with serious head injury after a crash in the Japanese Grand Prix this past weekend. Roberto Di Matteo has been appointed as manager of FC Schalke after the Bundesliga strugglers sacked Jens Keller for a torrid start to their season. The Italian won the Champions League as manager of Chelsea back in 2012, but Di Matteo has been without a club since then. He was sacked by Chelsea in November of that year. And finally, today is the 100th birth anniversary of the noted ghazal singer Begum Akhtar, known as Malika-e-Ghazal, or the Queen of Ghazals. Begum Akhtar was also an exponent of Dadra as well as Thumri. As we wrap up news tonight, we leave you with some soul-stirring music from the lady who's enthralled generations. We'll catch you again tomorrow, same time.
हमरी